Right now, this is our time in the studio with Carolina Coral. I welcome the viewers of Freedom. Let's get straight to the important news. Last night, Russian forces attacked the energy infrastructure in 4 regions of Ukraine. According to the country's Ministry of Energy, the enemy struck energy facilities in the Dnipropetrovsk, Kirovohrad, Sumy, and Donetsk regions. Emergency repair and restoration work is ongoing to restore power as quickly as possible after the shelling ended. As a result of the consequences, emergency power outage schedules are in effect in several Ukrainian regions. This morning, the Russian army also attacked Chernihiv with strike drones. There are reports of damage to transport infrastructure, particularly the railway. As a result of the shelling, a locomotive engineer sustained shrapnel wounds, and rolling stock was also damaged. This was reported by the Regional Prosecutor's Office. Prosecutors, together with investigators from the SBU and police, are documenting the consequences of Russia's war crime. The defense forces eliminated 730 Russian servicemen literally in the past 24 hours. According to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, the total losses of Russian forces since the start of the full-scale aggression have exceeded 1,128,000 personnel. In addition, over the past day, 5 Russian tanks, 10 armored combat vehicles, 35 artillery systems, 1 air defense system, and 74 units of enemy automotive and special equipment were destroyed. In the past 24 hours, 178 combat engagements were recorded on the front line. This was reported by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. The Russian army launched 2 missile strikes on Ukraine, carried out 100 air raids, dropped 206 guided bombs, and conducted more than 4,500 shellings. In the most intense Pokrovsk direction, the defense forces repelled 55 attacks by Russian occupiers. There were 33 enemy assaults in the Alexandrovsk direction and 23 attacks in the Konstantinovsk direction. Another 15 attempts by the Russian army to advance were stopped by the armed forces of Ukraine in the southern Slobozansky direction. They deliver personnel to positions, bring in supplies and ammunition, and evacuate the wounded when necessary. The crew of the Gyurza armored vehicle from the 225th Separate Assault Regiment of the Ukrainian Defense Forces is successfully handling these tasks in the Sumy direction. Our correspondent, Alexei Baranovsky, spoke with the crew of the Ukrainian armored vehicle and learned about the specifics of the vehicle's operation, which helps hold back the advance of Russian occupiers in the Sumy region.
I'm the driver. Here's my machine gunner. That's our crew. One keeps an eye on the sky. The other watches the road, just to put it simply for you.
This is the crew of the Ukrainian armored vehicle Gyurza, which is in service with the 225th Separate Assault Regiment in the Sumy region. Here, because of the constant threat from drones, every task has to be done as quickly as possible. This is only possible thanks to the crew's coordinated work and the reliability of the equipment.
Delivering supplies. Bringing in infantry. Evacuation. Evacuation. Bringing in infantry. Moving infantry from one point to another. That's it. Unloading. Unloading there. Troops on the ground. Troops have disembarked. We closed up and took off. We're working 24/7.
The vehicle has a high level of armor protection and can complete its mission even after being hit by Russian FPV drones. At the same time, it packs considerable firepower. The turret for firing is armored and equipped with a heavy machine gun.
You feed the belt in here, insert the round, clamp it down, close the cover, pull the handle towards you, let it go sharply, and it's loaded. And then you get to work. What caliber is it? 12.7.
The 225th Regiment continues to push Russian occupiers out of the Sumy region. In this footage, the crew of the Gyurza, evacuating the wounded from the front line, comes under attack from Russian drones.
We had almost made it out of the village. While we were driving, they kept firing at us. Because we were moving slowly, we stopped at the edge of the village. Well, that's it. It had already frozen up. We pulled out the wounded. We found shelter, a basement in a house. We dragged them into the basement. We waited until things quieted down a bit, and then we made contact, and then we evaluated, pulled them out. So, everyone alive? Yes, everyone is alive. Everything's fine.
We're all walking around. The fighter with the call sign Masa used to work as a long-haul truck driver before the army. He says that switching to driving an armored vehicle wasn't hard for him, but now there's the added responsibility for the lives of his comrades, whom the Gyurza crew manages to save effectively.
Evacuation, wounded at our feet. It requires a lot of, I think, attention and precision. To pick them up on time, to get the guys out from under fire, so that everyone stays safe and alive.
The Ukrainian armored vehicle Gyurza went into mass production with the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. It has proven itself excellently in combat conditions, serving with the border guards, the National Guard and Special Forces units of Ukraine's defense forces. Alexei Baranotsky from Sumy region for Freedom TV channel.
Before the talks with Trump, the president of Ukraine held a series of meetings in the United States, including with representatives of the defense company Lockheed Martin, as well as the Raytheon Corporation. They manufacture missiles and radars, including the Patriot systems. They discussed cooperation and Ukraine's needs for air defense systems, as well as the possibility of increasing supplies of long-range weapons and the prospects for Ukrainian-American production. There are decisions that can strengthen Ukraine's defense, emphasized Volodymyr Zelenskyy. The United States is ready to help restore Ukraine's damaged energy system, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said after meeting with U.S. Secretary of Energy Chris Wright. They discussed, in particular, energy capabilities and potential projects for partnership in this area. Volodymyr Zelenskyy spoke about Russian strikes on Ukraine's energy system and the needs for the prompt restoration of affected facilities. In addition, the president held a series of meetings with the heads of American energy companies. They also discussed long-term cooperation and specific projects to support Ukraine's energy system. Ukrainian Prime Minister Yulia Sverdenko and Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico held talks today in the Slovak city of Košice. The Ukrainian Prime Minister reported this on Telegram, and a series of bilateral consultations took place between the parties, including between the foreign ministers of the two countries. Sverdenko and Fico discussed cross-border cooperation and transport links, as well as collaboration in the energy sector. During the consultations, they also addressed issues related to the defense industry, Ukraine's recovery, EU integration, agriculture, and education.
I am grateful to Prime Minister Robert Fico for the reception. We continue our constructive Ukrainian-Slovak dialogue and cooperation on practical levels, increasing pressure on the aggressor, forcing them toward peace, protecting critical infrastructure, and European unity. These are not just political slogans, but matters of vital necessity. These and other topics are key in our discussions today. Yulia Sverdenko, Prime Minister of Ukraine, on Telegram.
NATO will not allow Moscow to violate borders. So, in the event of new provocations, it is necessary to shoot down Russian planes. This was stated by Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney in an interview with Bloomberg. He emphasized that the bloc countries must keep all response options open for such incidents, including the possibility of shooting down Russian planes. The alliance states are defending themselves, and we will certainly do whatever is necessary to support them, Carney concluded. Alexander Lukashenko is trying to restore relations with Europe amid improved dialogue with the United States. In particular, Minsk hopes to achieve an easing of sanctions. This was reported by Reuters. According to the agency, a high-ranking Belarusian diplomat held a series of meetings with European representatives after Belarus sent them an invitation at the end of September. European diplomats saw this as an attempt by Belarus to break out of political isolation due to improved relations with Washington under Donald Trump. Let me remind you that in September, Lukashenko had a phone conversation with Trump. After that, Belarus released more than 50 political prisoners, and Washington partially lifted sanctions on the state airline Belavia, allowing it to purchase spare parts. The most powerful Indian oil refinery, Indian Oil, has purchased 2 million barrels of Guyanese oil. This was reported by Reuters. Another Indian refinery bought the same amount. Deliveries are expected as early as the end of this year. This is the first time an Indian refinery has purchased this grade of oil. And according to Reuters sources, this is how India is diversifying its supplies by testing new grades from South America. This will also help Indian refineries replace part of their imports of Russian oil, purchases of which have led the U.S. to put pressure on New Delhi, since the sale of raw materials helps finance the Russian war machine. South Korea has announced the deployment of the secret Hyunmoo-5 ballistic missile as early as the end of this year. This was stated by the country's defense minister, On Yu-baek. According to him, mass production of these missiles has already begun, and steps are being taken to significantly ramp up their output. The military first revealed information about the Hyunmoo-5 during the Armed Forces Day ceremony last year. The South Korean Ministry of Defense is convinced that, since the country does not possess nuclear weapons, it must have a significant number of large missiles to maintain balance in its standoff with North Korea. The defense minister's remarks came as North Korea is ramping up its weapons development, likely thanks to technological assistance from Russia. Due to China's economic expansion and the increase in North Korean labor quotas, Russia could lose control over 40% of its territory. That's the assessment of Ukrainian intelligence. For its assistance in the war against Ukraine, Moscow is paying not only with oil, grain, money, and technology, but also with its own territories. After all, if it weren't for the support of its allies, Russia would have lost the war long ago, said Kirilo Budanov, head of the main intelligence directorate of Ukraine's Ministry of Defense. My colleague Victoria Chistiakina will continue on this topic.
In this footage, North Korean drone pilots are adjusting the fire of Russian multiple rocket launcher systems at Ukrainian armed forces positions in the Sumy region. Ukrainian soldiers have recorded communications between operators from North Korea and Russian soldiers.
In the Kursk region, these units are conducting reconnaissance operations using unmanned aerial vehicles. They are detecting the positions of the Ukrainian armed forces and assisting in adjusting fire on Ukrainian units in the Sumy region. From a statement by the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces on Telegram.
Due to heavy personnel losses, the Russian command continues to involve North Korean military personnel in active combat operations, the Ukrainian General Staff explained. Soldiers from North Korea have been participating in Russia's war against Ukraine since the fall of 2024. According to South Korean intelligence, Pyongyang has sent more than 10,000 military personnel to the Federation. At least 1 in 5 of them has been killed.
Where else can Putin get external resources? Trained soldiers, as you say, he can get either from Kim Jong-un, who might sell or lease them out. He could forcibly take part of his army from Lukashenko. These are trained armies, where the soldiers have already undergone training, are equipped, armed, and have completed combat coordination. Putin doesn't have such a resource inside Russia. Even with mercenaries from all over the world, from China, Central Asia, Africa, he can't make up for it.
Russia would have lost the war against Ukraine a long time ago if it weren't for the support of its allies. With resources, weapons, and manpower, the head of the main intelligence directorate of the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense is convinced.
I want to emphasize that Russia would have lost the entire war long ago.
I want to stress that Russia would have lost this war long ago, and Ukraine, with the help of its partners, would have regained all the occupied territories if it weren't for the Kremlin's support from its allies, especially North Korea. I want to draw attention to the unscrupulous actions of certain countries. In defiance of international sanctions, they allow the Russian Federation to obtain weapons, ammunition, and critically important components. Moreover, they allow their citizens to join the ranks of the Russian Federation's armed forces.
The North Korean dictator stated that the DPRK will expand its nuclear arsenal in order, in his words, to counter the military cooperation between the United States, South Korea, and Japan. Such statements are based on Moscow's partnership commitments. The chairman of South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff stated that Russian technologies were likely used in the creation of North Korea's new intercontinental ballistic missile, the Hwasong-20. The missile was demonstrated for the first time at a parade on October 10. In Pyongyang, it was called, and I quote, the most powerful strategic nuclear weapon system, and they claimed it can strike any target on the continental United States.
The overall design of the Hwasong-20 transporter erector launcher apparently differed significantly from the previous Hwasong-19, whose very first launch successfully took place in October of last year. This has led to speculation that North Korea may have received support from Russia in developing a new long-range missile, amid the deepening military cooperation between the two countries, according to a report by Yonhap news agency.
Russia pays its allies not only with money, resources, and technology, but also with its own territories. China and North Korea are gradually taking economic control of Russia's eastern regions, according to the Ukrainian Foreign Intelligence Service. China is increasing its financial influence. Beijing's investments in the Far Eastern Federal District will reach a record 1 trillion rubles in 2025. These are trade contracts. China does not plan to invest in the infrastructure of Russia's hinterland. More than 2 million Chinese people now live in the territories stretching from Vladivostok to the Urals. And for low prestige and hard labor, Moscow is actively bringing in citizens from North Korea. According to official data, over 15,000 workers from the DPRK arrived in the Far East in the past year. Unofficially, the number is around 50,000. Russian companies have already submitted requests for 153,000 North Korean workers.
The presidents of Ukraine and the United States will meet today in Washington at 8 p.m. Kyiv time. The talks will take place in an informal setting and will be closed to the press. The main goal is to achieve peace in Ukraine, as well as to discuss arms supplies, including Tomahawk missiles. According to Volodymyr Zelensky, Putin is no braver than Hamas or any other terrorist. The language of strength and justice will definitely work with regard to Russia as well. Zelensky noted that after reports of possible Tomahawk missile deliveries, Moscow is now rushing to resume dialogue. In addition, the Ukrainian leader emphasized that Russia continues its systematic terror against Ukraine's energy sector. Most of its targets are infrastructure facilities.
Russia is counting on turning our part of Europe into an island of danger and abuse of people's lives. It's important not to let that happen. Russia will be forced to stop the war when it can no longer continue it. And Russia's real willingness for peace is not in words, which Putin has never been short of, but in actually stopping the strikes and killings. And that's exactly where he has a problem. That's why every air defense system for Ukraine matters for saving lives. Every decision that can strengthen us brings the end of the war closer. Security can be guaranteed if everything that we agree on, particularly in Washington, is actually implemented. Thank you to everyone who stands with Ukraine. Volodymyr Zelensky, President of Ukraine, on Telegram.
Before meeting with Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky, U.S. President Donald Trump spoke with Putin. Trump called the conversation productive and even expressed hope that their next meeting in Budapest would help achieve greater progress and finally end Russia's war against Ukraine. Trump also said that he would discuss this conversation today with Volodymyr Zelensky.
In about 2 weeks, pretty soon, Marco Rubio will meet with Lavrov. They will agree on the time and place of the meeting. I think it was a very good phone conversation, very productive. I will meet with Putin and we will make a decision.
Subscribe to The Gaze and stay updated on the most important events, top news from Ukraine and all over the world, in-depth analysis, exclusive reports and interviews, all on hand in our channel. Join our community of viewers and stay tuned.